Lesson 17, number 14. This is finding the inverse of a function. Our function is f of x equals 3x plus 1 over x minus 1. So what we're going to do first is remember that f of x represents y. And then we're going to trade the x and y, because when you have an inverse function, the domain and range trade. And since x is representative of the domain and y of the range, we just need to trade those two variables to find that inverse. So x will equal 3y plus 1 over y minus 1. So we trade x and y. Then we're going to cross multiply. So to cross multiply, I'll have x times y minus 1, and then 3y plus 1 times technically 1, but that just leaves it the same. Just cross multiply. Then we're going to distribute. Then we want our y to be on one side. So we're going to take any terms that have y in them and make sure that they're both on the same side of the problem. And anything that does not have y on the other side of the problem. Okay, now we just factor out the y. So now we're kind of doing everything in reverse that we just did. We did distributive property, and now we're going backwards. So factor out the y. And then let's go ahead and divide by anything that's not y, so that we have it by itself. So we have y equals x plus 1 over x plus 3, which means the inverse function is x plus 1 divided by x plus 3. Okay, now let's talk about the domains and ranges of these functions. So here's our function f of x. The domain, as you can see, is that x cannot equal 1, because if we plug in a 1, we would get 0. We can't divide by 0. The range can be found from this answer down here, but let's also just practice doing our horizontal asymptote. The range would be, we have a horizontal asymptote at 3 over 1 because the degrees are the same. So the range would be that y cannot equal 3. That agrees with this because in our inverse, x is not going to be able to equal 3 because of the x plus 3. Actually, it'll be a negative 3, won't it? I feel like there's something sketchy about my answer that I messed up somewhere. Some of you have been watching this going, no, she did that wrong. Okay, now my eraser was too big and I've taken out clumps of things I didn't mean to take out. So there's that, and that. Perfect, that's much better because that would be a positive 3 that makes that 0. Okay, so then for our inverse, our domain is that x cannot equal 3. And our range, again, we can use that horizontal asymptote. Degrees are the same, leading coefficients, 1 divided by 1. So y would not equal 1. So now look how cool this is. Here's our original function. Here's our inverse. And the domain of the inverse is the same as the range. I mean, the domain of the function is the same as the range of the inverse. It's just that we trade x and y. And then the range of the function is the same as the domain of the inverse. We just trade x and y there. So you don't even have to find these using the horizontal asymptote method. I was just using that to confirm my answers. You can use the domain of one function for the range of the other function. I hope this makes sense.